Greetings all, and welcome to the 32nd episode of TM Technical Movement. For today, we'll be taking a look at the Poison Sting, Barb Barrage, Acid, Acid Spray, Smog, Clear Smog and Belch attacks, and the Poison Gas, Corrosive Gas, Acid Armor, Gastro Acid, and Poison Powder techniques.
Much as the name suggests, the Poison Sting attack involves spraying the opponent with a shower of fine toxic needles in hopes of penetrating their skin and injecting potent toxins into their body. While many poison types have the way of directly injecting poison into their target, most are fairly weak at a young age and are unable to utilize their full power from the start. As compensation, some poison types begin with the ability to generate sharp needles made from their own poison in a hardened crystalline form, hardened through chemical reactions on the outside of their poison glands. By spewing these needles out in a violent shower, these creatures can still deliver a potent dosage of poison despite their young age. The sharpened needles are relatively ineffective at causing damage, but a full shower of needles has a 30% chance of injecting enough toxins into a target to actually poison them, so a lack of power isn't necessarily such a big problem, especially if the opponent is a wild Pokemon that has no access to natural antidotes like a Pecha Berry. This fear factor is made even more threatening by the fact that the sheer volume of poison needles is almost impossible to miss completely, in turn making the attack perfect for close combat situations. Unfortunately, the attack does not benefit from items like King's Rocks, nor is it quite as effective at long range, as the needles tend to spread out in a fairly wide pattern with a distance. Nonetheless, it oftentimes more than sufficient at granting otherwise defenseless Pokemon the chance to spring a nasty, toxic surprise on opponents when they least expect it. Because the needles used in a Poison Sting attack can only travel so far, maintaining one's distance is the easiest way to counter this attack, otherwise it is extremely difficult to dodge the attack in close quarters. Rocky Armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and Metallic Armor can completely negate its effects. While the Poison Sting attack might look dangerous, its bark is far worse than its bite, and the damage it does is often more than negligible. Moreover, protection against poisoning can easily render its most dangerous attribute inert, making it a relatively unreliable move that few Pokemon will ever have to seriously worry about. Considered to be the signature attack of Hisuian Quillfish and Overquill, the Barb Barrage attack involves users slamming into a target and repeatedly smashing their poisonous stingers into the body to deal damage. While many poison types have a way of directly injecting poison into the target, most are fairly weak at a young age and are unable to utilize their full power from the start. As a consequence of the unique diet and lifestyle, however, this is not entirely the case for Hisuian Quillfish and the Evolution Overquill, who get access to the nasty Barb Barrage attack at an early point in their life cycle. This attack is a fairly straightforward move, in that it is executed by these beasts puffing up and repeatedly smashing the poison-tipped barbs into a target to inflict damage. The attack is only moderately powerful on its own and does not seem like a major threat, but the real issue with it is the special type of poison they generate before executing the attack. On the one hand, the toxins in their bodies are much stronger and more intense than others, so the attack has a 50% chance of actually poisoning a target, far more than most other poison-type attacks. However, this is made worse by the fact that the poison is also highly unstable and tends to react even more strongly when in the presence of dead or damaged tissue that has already been affected by poison. This will cause the compounds to react violently and intensify the damage they do, effectively doubling the base power of the attack when it is used on an opponent that is already inflicted with a poison status condition of some sort. This makes the move a terrifying and dangerous force to have to face in many fights, and in turn something worth fearing for its potential to devastate crippled Pokemon with ease. Because the Barb Barrage attack requires user to utilize its full body in order to inflict damage, strikes to the use of this move can potentially lessen the damage dealt by the blow. Otherwise, however, it is extremely difficult to dodge in close quarters. Rocky Armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and Metallic Armor can completely negate its effects. While the Barb Barrage attack might be exceptionally rare to see, and thus is not always a serious issue to consider, if placed against a Pokemon that has access to this move, only strong defenses and an immunity to the effects of the poison used in the attack have any hope of keeping the move from impacting, let alone dealing immense damage if one's Pokemon are already in danger from being poisoned. Much as the name might suggest, the acid attack involves spraying an opponent harshly with volatile acid in order to inflict damage. Unlike most other types of poison-type attacks, the acid attack does not actually involve attacking with conventional poison, but instead harsh acid to inflict damage. The actual chemical composition of the acid used in the attack depends heavily on the natural toxins the user is actually able to normally produce, but the resulting splash of acidic liquid is often quite painful when used against unarmored Pokemon, and is more than able to inflict chemical burns on weaker creatures. More importantly, the application of this acidic liquid has the effect of potentially compromising the opponent's natural resistance against special attacks, in turn lowering their special defense stat about 10% of the time. The fact that the acid normally is diluted in order for the user to prevent damaging itself makes the attack less than truly powerful, but its low stamina cost can nonetheless make it a great alternative to the otherwise weak and offensively pointless Poison Sting attack, especially since it can actually strike multiple adjacent opponents while only suffering a 25% drop in base power. Due to its reliance on rapidly sprayed acid as a projectile, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the acid attack. Rocky armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by this attack, and metallic armor can completely negate its effects. The acid attack is generally only seen among younger Pokémon because of its otherwise low damage potential, so it usually isn't something that needs to be feared in battle. Even so, the move can still be a powerful weapon against unarmored opponents, so having Pokémon with durable armor will help minimize the damage the move is actually able to inflict. Much as its name also suggests, the acid spray attack involves harshly spraying an opponent with volatile concentrated acid in order to inflict damage. Like the related acid attack, the acid spray attack does not actually involve attacking with conventional poison, but instead harsh acid to inflict damage. The actual chemical composition of the acid used in the attack also depends heavily on the natural toxins the user is normally able to produce, but the resulting splash of acidic liquid is often quite painful when used against unarmored Pokémon, and is more than able to inflict chemical burns on weaker creatures. More importantly, the application of this concentrated acidic liquid has the effect of inflicting tremendous damage on the outermost layers of skin, exoskeleton, and rocky armor on a target, and heavily compromises the target's resistance against special damage, in turn sharply lowering their special defense stat about twice as much as normal. The move might lack the ability to strike multiple opponents in battle, but this is because the acid used in the attack is not diluted, and thus delivers its full strength every time it hits an opponent, making it the perfect method for lowering an opponent's capacity to resist damage from special attacks quickly and efficiently in battle, and thus it was an understandable fit as TM13 and Silphco's 9th generation line of TMs. Due to its reliance on rapidly sprayed acid as a projectile, there is no way to directly counter-dodge the acid spray attack. Rocky armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and metallic armor can completely negate its effects. The acid spray attack is unable to deal a ton of damage in battle, so the chance of seeing it among purely offensive opponents is extremely slim. Even so, the fact that the move heavily cripples a target's ability to resist special attacks can make it a devastating weapon in the long run, and should thus be prepared for with armor strong enough to resist its otherwise corrosive effects. As one might imagine from its name, the Smog attack involves spraying an opponent with a discharge of filthy toxic gases in an effort to inflict damage and potentially poison them. Instead of attempting to filter out particular chemicals from the smoke or toxic gas that fills the Pokemon's body, those with the ability to utilize a Smog attack can actually discharge all of the impurities in their bodies, either as a result of incomplete ignition or simply from their insides alone in the case of the coughing family, as a single cloud of intoxicating smoke. The actual damage such clouds are actually able to deal is quite low, and the fact there is little control over what sort of toxins are in the gas limits the overall chances of the move doing anything at all aside from temporarily blinding others, so to say that the Smog attack is unreliable would be underselling it. However, it does have two interesting features that can make it worth betting on in desperate situations. For one thing, the massive concentration of toxic chemicals within these clouds grants the Smog attack a 40% chance of poisoning any Pokémon it damages, in turn making it one of the most poison-friendly attacks out of all moves. On that same note, unfortunately, the toxic gas can be excruciatingly painful and potentially life-threatening to Pokémon and people in particular that are otherwise young or have compromised respiratory systems. This almost caused the move to be banned among major tournaments, but the attack's exceptionally low accuracy rate, as well as the fact that deaths are fairly rare, allow it to maintain a position among all types of combat, though there are still far more direct forms of damage available. Even so, if nothing else is available, the move's high chance of poisoning a target can make it worth betting on in the short run. Due to its use of toxic gas to inflict damage, there is no way to directly counter the Smog attack aside from blowing it away with a strong gust of wind, though a relatively agile Pokémon can still dodge with enough room. Rocky armor can also help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and metallic armor can completely negate its effects. Overall, the Smog attack is an unlikely move to see at all in tournaments because of its high-risk, low-payoff nature, but it nonetheless can serve as a sneaky surprise when stuck in close quarters, and should duly be countered with evasive tactics and some form of protection against poisoning. In stark contrast to the Smog attack, the clear Smog attack involves striking an opponent with a clump of toxic mud that breaks apart and releases haze gas when forcefully struck. Although the haze technique is great for its ability to equalize the stats of all present Pokémon, the fact that it affects every single present Pokémon without question can make it more than imprecise for tacticians. As it turns out, however, a select few species of Pokémon have learned how to contain this gas and use it in such a way as to only affect a single target. This is done by diffusing the same gas one would expect to see in a haze technique into a sturdy but slightly brittle clump of semi-hardened mud before launching it at a target as a projectile. Once the clump of mud hits, it breaks apart and quickly releases the contained haze gas in the presence of only the intended target, thus isolating the gas's stat nullifying effects. The actual damage done by the attack is fairly moderate and is only classified as a poison type attack because the haze gas is effectively concentrated into a solid form, which in turn will prevent it from attacking steel types, but also makes the attack impossible to avoid as a result of the mud's sweet, alluring smell as long as the opponent is still on the battlefield. But when a precision warfare is needed to wreck the strategy of the opposition without undoing any work you may have done stat-wise to your teammates and other opponents, few moves can work anywhere near as effectively as this specialized attack. Due to its use of toxic gas from the alluring scent to inflict damage, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the clear Smog attack. Rocky armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and metallic armor can completely negate its effects. The clear smog attack is generally too limited to be of much use among trainers, but the few that can use it will gladly take it upon themselves to negate any stat alterations your Pokemon inflicts on itself. Avoiding the use of moves that change one's own stats is the only real way to avoid this attack's most appealing attribute. As its name would clearly imply, the Belch attack involves usually eating and digesting a small amount of food to release a massive toxic belch to deal damage. The Belch attack itself is a bit confusing in that really it's nothing more than a large burp, though with toxic side effects in turn. On the downside, in order to use this attack, a Pokemon has to be holding a berry that can have an effect in battle when eaten. If they attempt to execute the move without one, or with a berry that has no general effect in battle, the move will fail and will cost the user valuable time in battle. If they have the right kind of berry on them though, Pokemon that can learn this move will swallow the berry immediately. After it is swallowed and the effects of the berry have been used up, the user releases a toxic soup of acids into the stomach that digests the swallowed berry and generate a massive amount of noxious gas in the process. Once the user is fully loaded and ready to fire, all it has to do is open its mouth and forcefully blast the air in their bodies outward, creating a massive belch that is not only deafening, but takes with it multiple types of volatilized toxins, which then seep into a target and inflict poison-type damage in addition to any damage the attack delivers for the belch's concussive sound burst. The move may not seem like a real threat in battle, but is actually just as powerful as the devastating gunk shot attack, as the toxins are more readily absorbed into the target's body as a result of their volatilized nature. Plus, the move can be used for the rest of a battle without needing another berry to do so. Overall, this makes the Belch attack a monster strike that can more than deal tremendous damage in battle, even if it does take a bit of a wind-up before the move can be executed. Due to the amount of time needed to prepare the move, moderately agile Pokemon should be able to dodge the Belch attack's noxious gas component even if they cannot escape the ear-splitting burp that precedes it, though the combination of sound and toxic gas make it impossible to directly counter. Strong Rocky armor can help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, and metallic armor on its own can completely negate its effects, but weaker Rocky armor is unlikely to perform as well on its own. The Belch attack may not be the most accurate of attacks, and requires a considerable sacrifice in battle to actually work, but the damage it is able to do is nonetheless intense and more than enough to take down even the strongest of fighters. As such, strong defenses and moves that can otherwise remove or switch their held berry are highly recommended for stopping the move before it can even start to become a problem. As one might imagine, the poison gas technique involves spraying a toxic gas in the faces of all nearby opponents in an effort to poison them. While it may resemble the smog attack a great deal, the poison gas technique is effectively a clean move in that it does not utilize any damage or potentially lethal chemicals in order to inflict damage. In truth, the gas within a poison gas technique is just that, poison that has been vaporized into a gaseous state. In reality, this actually makes the move a bit more effective than the basic smog attack, because the gases involved in this technique are light enough that they can be blown into the faces of multiple opponents with the same effect, even though this also makes it very difficult to hit allies, which is probably for the best. Moreover, the fact that the gases are generated from vaporizing liquid poison means that a lot more gas can be stored in the user before being released, in turn increasing the chances of an opponent inhaling enough gas to make the technique effective. Of course, the move is still not guaranteed to work every time, but for those foolish enough to inhale too much of the toxic gas, the result is instant poisoning. When something like the toxic technique is unavailable, or multiple targets need to be affected, the poison gas technique is a surprisingly versatile move that can make the few poison-type Pokemon able to learn it a potentially devastating threat in battle. A strong gust of wind that can blow away the toxic gas, moderately agile Pokemon, and moves, items, and abilities that either cure or prevent poisoning are highly recommended for countering the poison gas technique. In contrast to the poison gas technique, the corrosive gas technique involves spraying an acidic gas all around a Pokemon in order to eliminate the items of nearby Pokemon. The corrosive gas technique is a rare move that is generally only acquired by Pokemon through interactions with special move tutors available in select places across the globe. While it may resemble the poison gas technique a great deal, the corrosive gas technique is a variant that trades in the toxic nature of the move with an acidic tone, as the gas used in this move is actually a highly corrosive vaporized mixture of acids. The gas is light enough that it can be blown into the faces of multiple opponents, as with its contemporary, but it also has the drawback of spraying out everywhere around the user, so it will end up affecting allies in multi-Pokemon battles, as well as all opponents. What the move actually does, though, is quite sneaky and worth the risk, as while the combination of vaporized acid is not strong enough to actually inflict damage, it can quickly corrode and eat away at any items being held by Pokemon present in battle at the time of the move's execution, effectively melting and permanently removing the items from all of the Pokemon for the rest of a battle. This can make the move the perfect way to shut down most item-based strategies an opponent might try to use, and in turn level the playing field so only the individual power of the Pokemon involved in a fight determines their performance in battle. While a strong gust of wind can potentially blow away this move, there is otherwise no way to directly counter or normally avoid the corrosive gas technique, leaving the absence of held items on a Pokemon as the only total counter to its effects. In effect, the acid armor technique involves temporarily liquefying one's body in order to reduce the amount of damage physical blows are able to deal. A select number of Pokemon are able to physically and temporarily alter the cellular structure via electrochemical reactions into a thin slurry similar to water without facing any detrimental effects to the health. Aside from allowing them to slip unseen into a body of water and attack without warning, the Acid Armor technique effectively grants the user the same benefits of liquids in that the kinetic energy of received physical blows at any one point is heavily reduced as the energy is spread out over the widened surface of the user's body, in turn severely reducing the amount of damage they actually receive from physical attacks and sharply raising their defense stat, about twice as much as normal. Although the move is generally learned by far more non-poison type Pokemon than actual poison types, the Acid Armor technique is still considered to be a poison type move because it involves using an acidic liquid to break down the connections that otherwise hold cells together through electrochemical reactions, as mentioned already. Moreover, even if the user manages to reconstruct itself before the battle is done, the effect will still last for the duration of a battle because the user's cellular structure remains somewhat unstable for short periods of time after using this move. This can often frustrate opponents that are otherwise unfamiliar with the move, and in short, makes the technique a great way to counter physical damage without leaving the opponent an opportunity to properly counterattack. Attacks and techniques that raise a Pokemon's attack stat or lower an opponent's defense stat are highly recommended for dealing with the Acid Armor technique. Much as the name suggests, the Gastro Acid technique involves hurling stomach acid onto an opponent in order to send them into septic shock and disable their ability. Instead of simply hurling up concentrated acid to inflict damage, Pokemon able to utilize the Gastro Acid technique have come to learn the benefits of simply vomiting up their stomach contents and stomach acid onto an opponent. While the gagging spray doesn't actually inflict damage, the move does cause the inflicted target to freak out and send itself into a panic that gives the stomach acid time to dissolve the outer skin or shell, and turn allowing bacteria to seep in and induce a temporary but sudden septic shock. In all this confusion, the opponent becomes unable to utilize its ability or rely on it until they are switched out or otherwise removed from battle, with the exception of a few specialty abilities. This might make the move fairly limited in its practical applications outside of a defensive position, but the ability to completely eliminate the opponent's ability, even if it doesn't affect abilities that have no effect in battle or do much to reverse the initial effects of abilities like Intimidate, can be more than a huge benefit in battle and can help a defensive trainer turn the tide in their favor. Due to its unique properties, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Gastro Acid technique. As it may be obvious to think on, the Poison Powder technique involves scattering toxic powder into the surrounding airspace that can possibly poison anything that inhales it. Many plant-based Pokemon as well as a few bug types possess the ability to naturally produce spores or powders infused with natural toxins that can inflict detrimental status conditions on whoever inhales them. The Poison Powder technique in particular involves injecting a large amount of concentrated poison into an opponent's bloodstream by reducing it to an easily inhaled powdery form that is then vigorously scattered around the target. While an opponent will not always inhale enough of the powder to make the technique effective, when they do inhale enough, the result is always instant poisoning. Since only grass, poison, and steel types have a natural immunity to this powder, the potential for wrecking an opponent's strategy and seriously debilitating the Pokemon is immense despite the move's imperfect track record. When nothing else is available, a quick status condition can easily make otherwise difficult battles much easier, a trait more than present in this type of move. Relatively agile Pokemon, as well as moves, items, and abilities that either cure or prevent poisoning, are highly recommended for countering the Poison Powder technique.
That's it for this episode, so stay tuned for the next episode of TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.